Aloha. Aloha?
Aloha.
Number one.
Aloha. There you go.
Aloha.
Marines? Yeah. Marines?
Yes.
Well, I was informed by several people here, the Colonel, General, Dennis, that every birthday speech required a good sea story. Can anyone here tell me the definition of a good sea story?
Short. Exaggerated over time.
Yeah. Good sea story doesn't allow reality to get in the way.
Right.
Good. So I have two sea stories. Before I go, I want to once again thank probably the most thoughtful host I've ever had, Mary Ann and Lloyd Whitaker. I love that. Mahalo. Anyway, two sea stories. One's they're both time machines. One goes into the future. And the first one goes, there's a four-star Navy admiral, CNO, and one chairman of the Joint Chiefs. This is the year 2055. He's very senior, he dies. His name is Admiral Gary Lane. He passes away. He gets up there to heaven. There's St. Peter at the gate. And St. Peter says, "Welcome aboard, Admiral Lane. We're happy to have you. You have an impeccable record." And then the Admiral says, "Well, St. Peter, I'm happy to be here. It's going to be a long time, but I'd like to have one requirement. I want to be in a section of heaven where there's no U.S. Marines." And then St. Peter sort of smiles and says, "Well, I might be able to understand that, but well, why?" And he says, "Well, you know, they set the bar on hubris, their arrogance, imperiousness, high and mighty, their self-confidence. They're just everything. Think there's enough. He says, you're going to a section without Marines." So the Admiral gets in a blue and gold golf cart from his Naval Academy days and goes off into eternity. And about the fourth day, he's on a major intersection there. It's got a big 4-foot cube, marble cube in the middle of the intersection. It's on a highway of, let's see, it's St. Mary Ann Boulevard and St. Patrick Way. And there on top of this marble cube is a taller than 7-foot kind of guy. He's up there. He's got a stripe on his trousers, and he's commanding everything in the intersection. He's saying, oblique left, column right, at ease, parade rest. He's giving all these commands out, and the Admiral watches him, and he starts steaming. Gets angry. He goes right back to St. Peter and says, "St. Peter, you couldn't lie to me, did you?" St. Peter, "What are you talking about, Admiral?" He says, "Well, I was at the intersection of St. Mary Ann and St. Patrick Way, and I saw this gentleman on this big marble platform, and believe me, I know a U.S. Marine when I see one." St. Peter smiles and said, "Admiral Lane, that's not a Marine, that's God." You see, Admiral, God always wished he'd been a Marine. So that's a great audience. Okay, so I have a second sea story that, you know, you've heard the expression, once a Marine. Well, last week I was at Arlington Cemetery for over 2 hours trying to find a certain site when I was doing some research on this next sea story. And it reminded me of this once a Marine thing. You know, the French have an expression called je ne sais quoi. It's that mysterious something. Marines have it. And Marines understand it. And if you're not a Marine, Mr. Lane, you may never get it, but that's okay. General Christmas, the real driving force for our museum, has an expression. He says, when you arrive at Marine training for Parris Island, probably the only boot camp, you arrive at Parris Island, some hands open up your chest cavity, and a brand goes in there with the Eagle Globe in it that lasts you forever. So that's what this next story is about. This, once again, a time machine, goes back to 1903. In 1903, a young man named Mike was born in Brooklyn, New York. His parents were Irish immigrants. Mike. And his mother died when he was 4, so things were tough, and his father shipped him out to be raised by relatives in Montana. When he got to Montana, very little education was available, times were tough. He ran away from home a few times. And finally, when World War I started, he found a recruiter. You know, we have a few recruiters here, a recruiter with some imagination. And at the age of 14, he joins the U.S. Navy. A year and a half later, they find out he's only 15, and they throw him out of the Navy. So he goes back to Montana. Things are tough. He joins the Army for 2 years. Serves in the Army. Gets out of the Army, comes back. Things are once again not working for him, but on this time, he sees the light. So Mr. Morgan here from 10 November. On 10 November 1920, this young man joins the U.S. Marines on 10 November. He becomes a Philippine Marine, a China Marine. Finally, a couple years later, he gets honorably discharged, comes back to Montana. Things are tough, so he becomes a mucker. I can imagine what job that is, and it's copper mines. But he meets an Irish gal named Maureen. And he get hitched. She's a school teacher. She helped him get his equivalency. He goes to University of Montana, gets his bachelor's, his master's, then becomes a professor there for 10 years teaching history. Then he gets elected to the House of Representatives. He goes to Congress for 7 terms as a U.S. congressman. And while he's there, he set some records. He set the first equal rights bill, and he and a senator from Illinois created the Douglas-Mansfield Act. Dug in the late 70s when Harry Truman tried to take on the Marines. And this act perpetuates the fact that there will always be 3 divisions of Marines and accompanying air wings, and the commandant would have a place in the Joint Chiefs. Well, then he gets elected to the Senate for 24 years. After 24 years in the Senate, the longest running majority leader, he retires. But at this point, he has the respect of both parties, and the president sends him as ambassador to Japan. He's one of the most well-respected ambassadors they ever had. They built a statue of him. He's 12 years in Japan. So this incredible man, Mike Mansfield, he comes back, and he wants to retire again. But they were sending him on special assignments from the White House. By this time, he's working for Reagan, doing special assignments. But finally, after this long, illustrious career, this man with every credential you could have, at the age of 98, in 2001, he passes away. The government of Japan wanted to bury him in a special tomb there. The library they named after, the Mansfield Library in Helena, Montana, wanted to put him in the library in a special place of honor. And the government wanted to put him up on that hill in Arlington with the eternal flame. I saw his gravesite last week. Does anybody know where he's buried? Arlington. Well, he is buried in Arlington, but he's not in any prestigious spot. He's in Section 2, row 4969F, and he's got the standard oval white tombstone. And on that tombstone, it says, remember this man said every credential there is. It says Michael Joseph Mansfield, Private, U.S. Marines. Once a Marine. Now, as you probably know from my overdone bio, that I've been a journalist and I've been in faraway places with some of today's Marines. And I have to tell you, as I look at these Marines here, I think about those places I've been, I wonder if I ever wore the same fabric, the same uniform. Our Marines today are the best ever. When I travel, I oftentimes will teach oftentimes will lecture at a school or attend board meetings. I've had some young people ask me where I might have learned leadership. And I tell them I didn't learn leadership in any 101 college course. I learned leadership 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, on a little island off the coast of South Carolina. The only boot camp. I learned it from every NCO and officer I met. Why? Because they're embedded in a culture of excellence, founded on virtue and discipline. Happy birthday, Marines. I want to propose a toast to 240 years of romping, stomping Marines.
240 years, romping, stomping Marines.
Thank you, Mr. Brent.